The first thing is this is about REST API and Open API specs, all these things, how to design API and all. Okay. Uh, so, yeah. So first thing, what exactly we mean by REST? Okay. So REST stands for representational state transfer. Now don't get confused by the big name and everything. Okay. So this, I mean, the name is very confusing. It is first used by Roy Fielding in his dissertation somewhere in late 90s. Okay, so PhD dissertation and all this stuff. Okay, then REST basically is an architectural style. It is not really a new protocol or new standard as such and everything. Okay, now what exactly we mean by architectural style? Means architectural style means it is all about utilizing the existing HTTP protocol. Okay, so it utilizes this. Uh, sorry, yeah, it utilizes the protocol itself and all the things which are given as part of the HTTP protocol. It does not define any new thing. Just it thinks, okay, what is there already there as part of the protocol. Uh, uh, so and utilize it. So what in a best possible way, basically. Okay. So see the things which are there. Now, how I can best utilize this to define the API specification. Okay, and how I mean, yeah, that doesn't need to reinvent the bill. Make it very simple. So utilize HTTP protocol in a very simple, effective way to define the API specification. When I say specification, basically mean API design. Okay, do the designing the API. Okay. Now here, as part of the REST, mostly when we have to transfer data from one party to the other party, either client to server, server to client. Okay. So most of the most often we use JSON format. Okay. So when we send data, we send in a JSON format. But many times people confuse REST as a JSON. But JSON is only one of the formats supported by REST. Everything basically, as I mentioned, right? Anything on HTTP protocol. Okay, anything that we use HTTP protocol is a REST thing. Okay, so JSON is, I mean, it is not the REST standards or REST specifications. They are not only limited to JSON. Even you send the data as an XML, that also is REST. You send data as a normal form parameter, that also is REST. You send data as a binary content, that also is REST. Everything is REST. Okay, so JSON is the most common way, but it is not the only way to transfer data. Remember, because many times people confuse REST means JSON, but it is not true. Okay, so yeah, JSON is the most popular way and most common way, but not the only way. Okay, and REST, if we follow the REST API principles properly, the things which are defined as part of the REST, okay, if we follow them properly, then what happens is these APIs become self-documenting. Okay, so just looking at the APIs, okay, looking at the things which are defined, anyone can easily understand what exactly is the API doing. Okay,
Yeah.
and I mean what it is supposed to do, what is the parameter, the request, response, everything. Okay, so you don't need a separate like Word file or some other kind of documentation tool to understand it. Just by looking at that API URL. Okay, so just you people look at the URL, people look at the method, people look at the parameter names, everything. Just by looking at those, okay, people can easily understand what exactly is that API is going to do, what do I have to send from a consuming point of view, what I will get as a response. Okay, all kind of things people can easily understand based on that. All right, so that is the whole idea. The REST should make things simple. Okay, previously before REST we had SOAP. Okay, so SOAP was the legacy way. In SOAP people used XMLs. Okay, so SOAP was using XML format on HTTP protocols. SOAP was XML over HTTP, but that was very complicated. For even for small things you have to send a very big SOAP format and everything. So people thought, okay, we made it actually too complicated, let's go back to basics. Okay, let's go back to basics and utilize the protocol itself, HTTP protocol. You don't have to always send a JSON. Okay, you don't have to always sorry uh, always you can say all I mean, for small things you don't need to write a big XML documents. It is too much of overload and all overkill, right? So they went back to simple things. So they first made it complicated by using XML, the SOAP. But basically, if you strictly go by the definition, correct? If you strictly go by the definition, SOAP is nothing but a more restrictive REST. Okay, so I mean, because XML over HTTP is SOAP. Okay, but anything over HTTP is REST. Okay. So that is why basically REST is a superset of SOAP. Okay, if you see, so SOAP is like XML over HTTP, only a specific kind of XML over HTTP, that is SOAP, and REST is anything over HTTP, JSON, XML, and any no, other kind of data, everything is okay. So that is REST. All right. So now, so going into depth, what exactly a RESTful API look like? So in the REST, what the REST principles they say, the URL, right? When we are defining the URL, okay, in the URL path, okay, so entity name should be present. The path should be defined in a resource oriented. So name of the resource should be in the path, okay, and it should be a noun. So reason, you have to give the name of the entity. Okay, so whatever entity you are going to operate, okay, so whatever entity you are going to work on or deal with or operate on, that entity name should be given in the path. Okay, so for example, if you want to work on orders, so a slash order should be in the path. Okay, so that should be obviously noun, right? So that it should be noun, the name of the entity. Okay, and if you want to work on a collection, if you want to work on a collection type, okay, then you just give the name of the entity. If you want to work on a single resource of the collection, okay, not the whole collection but a single resource, in that case you also provide the unique identifier, unique ID also in the path. Okay, so if you want to do something on the list of orders or collection of order, you give only slash orders in the path. But if you want to do any operation on the single order, you do provide the unique ID. So there should be unique identifier that should be in the path. Okay, so
That will
in
be
that,
optional, right?
sorry, only if
I mean,
you, yeah, it will become mandatory if you want to work on single order. So if you want to work on single, then it becomes mandatory like this. Okay, but
okay.
if you don't want to work on single order, if you want to do something on a list of them, then we use only
Slash
yeah,
orders.
slash orders. Okay, this ID is like, means this ID already exists. The assumption is that if this ID already exists and you want to work something on that. Okay, now what kind of work something is, so we discussed about you have to work. Now what kind of work or what kind of operation? So mainly there are four kind of operation most of the time. Okay, there will be four kind of operation. Okay, one is to retrieve. If you want to do retrieve or if you want to do search, then we use HTTP method get. Okay, so this is the HTTP verb or HTTP method. So what kind of activity we are going to do? Okay, so that is defined by the HTTP method that we use. Okay, so we, for example, if you want to do something on the order, so do something on the orders, but what exactly you want to do? So for example, if you want to get the order, okay, get the list of orders, so basically you do get, correct? So that is a search or retrieval. We use get method, HTTP method get, or HTTP verb get. Okay, if you want to do a create operation, we use post. Okay, if you want to do an update, we use a put or patch, either of them. And if we do removal, then we use delete method. Okay, so then we specify these are the HTTP methods we have to use. Okay, so that is the ideal REST API. Okay,
Okay.
so again, in REST, it is not a rule. So remember, REST is all the best practice and guidelines. The thing is that in REST, you don't have a rule as such. So you cannot call that it is REST or not REST, because there is no rule. In REST, either it will be a good design or a bad design. Okay, because what happen is, if you want to do something, for example, if what you can do, because it is eventually it comes to programmer, correct? So even if you want to define this get for create, that also there is nothing stopping you from doing. You can use a get method, but problem is that in get method you cannot provide body, correct? You have to provide a query parameter, right? Everything will be in the URL, and you don't want to provide any data, too much data in the URL, correct? So it will not be a good design, right? So that is why. So it is not that it will not stop you from doing anything wrong, okay, but it will not be a good design, okay, like this. Okay? So it is more like a discipline that we have to follow as per the best practice that is defined already, okay. So the guidelines which are defined as part of the REST standards or RESTful API specification, okay, or to follow. So these methods should be used to define the activities, okay, what kind of operation. So these methods, HTTP methods, are used to define what operation we are going to perform, okay, and on which
Okay.
thing, that will be in the path. So the name of the entity that you are going to work on, that name of the entity should be in the path, okay. For example, if you want to do on employees, it should be slash employees. If you want to do a user, it will be slash users, like this, okay. So name of the entity should be in the path, and what kind of operation we are going to do, that is defined by HTTP method, okay. And
Okay.
you mostly utilize these four methods, okay. Get push, get post, put, and delete. Sometimes patch is there, but that is very rarely, okay. So now this is so we have just, I've just given you an idea about the REST APIs. So going by that logic, can you tell me what exactly this will give me? It is a get colon viewer customer. So what exactly it is going to return?
Both, right?
Sorry.
I mean, are you asking the first get or the second get?
It is the same thing, just first get itself is the same thing. Here in the first one, we just both are the same, different representation of same thing. Here you are
Okay.
given the host name also, but second is the main operation, is that is what we focus on. Okay, so it is
Okay.
a get colon. After that, V1 customers, right? So what exactly it is going to do? What exactly it will do?
Right. Maybe I mean, it is going to retrieve or search the customers,
Correct. So what it will give me in return?
the customer data in the response.
Yeah, but it will not be a single customer, right? Because it is a, as we discussed, right, a list of customer, correct?
List of
It will give
customers.
me a
Yeah.
list of customers, correct? So it will give me list of customers. So here you can see in entries, it is like
Mhm.
customer object, list of customer object, correct? So list
Right.
of customers. So it will be like ID, name, and then uh, it can give a
Like a
URL
select,
to get the full
select.
data about a single customer, right? All this. Okay, that
Yeah.
way it will give me list of customers. Okay,
Mm.
what this will give? Second one.
A customer data whose ID is A435.
Correct. So it will give me a single customer, correct? The data with
Right.
whatever a something. Okay. So this will
Right.
give me a single entity. It will not give me a full like a array, correct?
Right.
This one is
Yeah.
giving me array here, correct? Right? Entries is an array that is like a
Mhm.
list or something collection type, correct? List or collection. Here it will give me a single JSON object, which will give you for that specific user. Okay. So that
Yeah.
is the now. So we already discussed about the noun, the resource name. The path should be noun
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
that will represent the name of the entity, correct? And there can be two two primary paths. One path is for your list type, correct, or collection type, right? And second path should be for a single entity, right? A single entity, single employee or single order, whatever, correct? So these are the two primary URL. For every resource, there should be ideally two primary URL site, okay, that we usually use. And APG recommends to use plural noun for the collection name. So, for example, APG just says employees, orders, customers, users, like this. Okay. However, in my work that I have done a lot of projects, some it depends on the company to company. Okay. Some of the companies they already have some defined which they say let's use only singular. So some people use singular, some people use plural. Both are okay, I guess. I don't have any strong opinion on that.
Okay.
As per APG recommend to use plural, but I have seen many companies they use singular also. Okay.
Okay.
And another thing is that we should prefer the concrete name. What exactly mean by concrete name is more generic name that everyone understands. We should not use any internal terms, company internal terms. For example, if you call your employees as API geeks, okay, so you have a API company, you call your internally you call your employees as API geeks, okay. But when you are creating an API for your employees, the name should be slash employees. It should not be slash API geeks. Okay. So the
Okay.
name should be anyone who sees the path, right? That should be clear to you. This is for slash employees, right? See, this API is for employees, correct? Because internal names people will not understand, correct? Like this. Okay, so more generic names, which is more wider audience, people that anyone can understand, those names we should use. Okay, in the API resource. Now here we use, as we discussed, we use HTTP method, or the operations that we discussed, those are called CRUD operation. CRUD means create, read, update, delete. These are the four operations. So come in, I don't know in your work so far, have you heard these term CRUD operations or not? But
Yeah, CRUD, I heard it. It's like create, remove, update, and delete, right?
correct. So that's what. So create, yeah, create, read, update, delete. So that's the this thing. So here, as you know, so here now, in so basically, for example, if we are using slash dogs, okay, if you are using slash dogs with post method, okay, post method with slash dog, it will create a new dog, okay, and if you want to do get, it will give me list of all the dogs. Post will do a batch update, okay, delete will do batch delete, okay, so like this. Now another thing is that if you are giving dog with dog id, if you are giving dog id, then create operation is not permitted. Reason, this 1 2 3 4 actually it should be a result of the post, correct, because
Right.
if you are already giving id, this means this dog already exists, right, so you cannot
Exist.
create something which already exists, right. That is the
Right.
reason it is not allowed. So when you are slash dogs, okay, and use a JSON body, and the result of that create will be the unique identifier will be in the response, okay, then that unique identifier can be used for other operations, okay. So that is the post is not allowed. Get will give me a single dog, put will update a single dog, and delete will delete a single dog, okay. So that is the thing. Okay, now here another important thing that we do is, because many times people are coming from a programming background, so they have this very bad habit, okay, people from all we there'll be someone from Java background, .NET or whatever. What they will do is, if you allow them to create their URLs, they will use the verbs, okay, they will use a verb like get, set. They, because if you know, in there we are used to write getter method, setter method, or something like this, right. So what they will think is, because of the programming background they have, they will start using those getter, setter, all those kind of naming conventions in the URL. But rest is very very clear, we should not use any kind of any kind of verb in the URL should be noun, okay, you should only have the name of the entity. So URL should be noun, there should not be any verb. The role of the verb should be given to HTTP verbs or HTTP method. So that HTTP method that we are defining, that method will tell what kind of activity we are doing, okay. So resource should be in the noun, we should not have give, get, set, and all those stuff. Is employee active, get all employees, it should not be like this, okay. So that is not correct, and that is not a good design, okay. So that's why, so what we should do is, we should have the nouns in the path, and the role of the verb, or defining what activity we are doing, that is done by the HTTP method or HTTP verbs. So get, post, put method, that will tell what kind of activity we are doing, okay. Now for example, if there is an operation which doesn't fit into standard CRUD model, okay, so if there is an API call that we have to design, and that API call does not fit into standard CRUD operation, then in those specific cases, okay, in those specific cases when you are defining a non CRUD operation, okay, a non CRUD operation, in that scenario what you can do is, in that specific scenario you can use the unique identifier in the post, okay, you can use post, and you can use unique identifier, but you should always add a query parameter. That query parameter should tell what activity we are doing, because there has to be some way to identify, correct, what activity we are doing, right. And so in those specific scenario, so in some scenario which is a non CRUD operation, okay, and then you are using yeah, in those scenarios you can use unique id with post method in the path, okay, and then you, but you, it is mandatory that you define the action or activity, whatever action or activity in the query parameter, okay. So that way you can in that scenario you can use, actually for example, we had one API, that API was to send notification to customer, okay. So it is a notification API, so obviously it is not like a uh, like a standard CRUD operation. So here you could provide a user ID in the path. We are setting user ID in the path, and then or something, and then based on that, and the content would be there as a payload. Okay, content will be payload, and then action, yeah, and there, and then you can you in that scenario you can use like mobile number. Based on user ID you can identify mobile number and all, and then send notification via email, send notification via SMS and all those stuff, and it will send the notification, and then you will give the response. So obviously that was not a standard CRUD operation, right? We are not creating any user or anything, correct? So those kind of things we can put in here. All right. So now as based on this new information that we saw, based on this new information, now our table will be updated in a way that, so in the unique identifier is allowed when you are doing a non-CRUD operation and you are using query param. In that case, a post is allowed, okay, with unique identifier. Okay, so that is the update. So this part is clear to you, or any doubt so far?
I'm
All
I'm
right.
I'm good.
Now
Yeah.
we just saw two kind of methods for update. It we have put and patch. Now put and patch both are used for updating. However, their use cases are different. So put is for a full update, patch is partial update. Okay. So usually if you have 10 fields, okay, if you want to update one or two, if you want to only update one or two fields, then we use
Patch.
patch. Okay, if you want more than two, then better to use put. In the put, whenever you are using put, you have to provide the full object. Okay, and in your code what we do is we will see whatever is updated we will update it, whatever is not we will not update, like this. Okay, and patch is only for like partial, only one or two fields that you do. All right, so put is basically full update when basically more than two fields, like this. And yeah, patch is partial updates, one or two, not more than that. Okay. So patch is like a more recent method. Traditionally, people are more used to put. Okay, put is more traditional people use it.
Okay.
Now another scenario is now when we have to uh, do any kind of filtering. Okay, when we have to do any kind of filtering or search, okay, based on the non-key attribute. When I say non-key means the thing which is not a primary key or not unique identifier. Okay, so when there is a something you have to do any kind of search or any kind of operation based on the field which is not a primary key, so those fields should be in the query parameter. Okay, so query parameter basically comes after question mark. So in the path you define, so normally for example you want to do a get based on path, that is fine. You want to get a dogs on for all the parks, parks park id dogs. Okay, or if you want to go for a single dog, you want to do this thing. Now but if you want to do any filter or search, okay, you want to do any filter or search for the dogs, okay, based on parameter like location, which is not a primary key, correct, because you can get multiple for that location. Color also you can get multiple, and state also you can get multiple, correct. So like this. So those fields which are not the primary key or not, or those fields which are going to be repeated, correct, there, those fields should be always sent in the query parameter. So basically that should be after the question mark. So after question mark you can set query parameter. So you have a standard url format, correct, the name of the parameter, value, and multiple parameters are separated by using ampersand. So ampersand is used to separate multiple parameters. Okay, so that is how you do it. So usually, I mean, we can do in get all of them. Mostly we use in get, but as we saw just some time back, right, for post also we can use query parameter. For put delete also we can use it, but those are very rare. Normally we do in get most of the time. Okay, give me a minute, please. Now another important thing is partial responses. Okay, so I have not seen many people do this. Okay, so I don't know why they don't do it, but here it can be very good thing. Usually, what happens is, especially from mobile application, right? From mobile app point of view, what happens is, sorry. Mm, mm. So yeah, as we know, for mobile, for the web-based client, it is not a big deal. But for mobile applications, the space is a very big deal. Correct. So for mobile applications, obviously you don't want to provide very large responses. Correct. Larger responses, more space. So mobile application, they don't have as much space, right? So the space, they are having some constraints in terms of space. Okay. So for mobile application especially, when you don't want to get full, uh, there are too many fields and you don't want to get the full response, then what you can do is you can allow the consumer to provide you which all fields do you want. Okay, so consumer can provide list of the fields in a comma separated. So you can define fields equal to id, full name, all the field names it can provide as comma separated in the url. Okay, and in your response you only provide those specific fields. You don't have to provide all the 20 fields or 30 fields and all those stuff, right? So it will save a space and it will improve the performance. Okay, so that is something that we can do, but I have not seen many people do it. For I mean, I think it might be a bit sometime too much of programming that they have might have to do a lot of if else statement and everything, right? So there might be for some reason, but yeah, actually from consumer point of view, this could be like a good thing. So you are giving a slice of response rather than full response. Okay, so yeah, that is on the partial response. So that completes our first part of the REST API, which is the basics. We understood what is the URL, what is the path, how you define the path, how to utilize methods and all that. Okay. Other things we will cover later on in other subsequent chapters. Okay. So any questions on this part?
No, I'm good, Manish, because I was dealing with REST APIs only. So
So that's why. So you might be obviously able to recall some things, right? So that's why. Yeah. So no problem. Now the next is Open API spec. So we'll just understand this a little bit. Obviously, this Open API specs is of a separate topic in itself. Okay, because it is not it is a separate technology altogether. Okay, so we use Open API specification to do the API design. Okay, Open API specification is like a very easy human and machine readable thing. Okay, and here we define the API. We use Open API specification to define the API design in a YAML format or JSON format. It will describe the API interface. Okay, it will have the path, all the path for the API. Okay, and what are the allowed operations. So it will give the path and method combination. Okay, for this path, these methods are supported, and then it will for this path and method combination. Uh, what will be the request format? What is the request response format? Request fields, response fields, successful scenario, failure scenario, everything you can define. And apart from that, you can also define the authentication. So is it going to be OAuth, is it basic auth or whatever? So authentication related detail also you can do. And another important thing is that if this API is available on the URL that is given, okay, if that API is already working and it is available on the URL which is defined in this Open API spec, then if you do, there is a button. If you do a button click, it will actually make the call also. So you can do the testing also. So this Open API specification is very useful tool for designing the APIs, okay, and it is used by multiple stakeholders. So for example, architects and leads. So leads or architects, they use this to do the API design. Then developer will use this same tool to do the development. Not tool as in it will refer the design, right? It will do the refer the design to do the development, write the actual code, and then uh, using this API specification that can act as an input. Okay, that can act as an input to Apigee for creating the proxy skeleton. Remember the word skeleton here. So it will obviously, because we have to add multiple policies and everything later on, but at least it will check all the URLs, everything, and it will create the basic policy skeleton by supporting all the paths and everything, paths and methods and all. Okay, so that APG can do that. So create a basic proxy skeleton, and then you can add all the APG features, all the policies on top of it. Okay, so that is there. And then you then this specification can be shared with the consumer, or it can be published on the portal. So you can share on consumer, you send it via email, or you can publish on the portals, and they can come and see on the portal. So and based on that, they can plan for their integration, right? So how to do integration and everything, right? So that is the whole idea, so that it makes things a lot simpler, and for multiple stakeholders they can use it in their own way to make sure the API is developed properly or it is integrated properly. Okay, so Apigee has this open API specs editor. So on the left side we do the changes, okay, which is what usually we do. So open API, there is a editor, the specification editor, okay, or spec editor as we call it. So on the left side you make the code change. Yeah, most common is the YAML format. In the YAML format the parent field is on the left line. So right, so whatever you see here, the parent field is on the left line and the child elements are the right aligned. So the parent is on the left, child is on the right, like this. Okay, and then you make the changes on the left side, you update anything on the left. On the right is a very nice UI. The right will tell how it will be presented to a customer. Okay, so your consumer or customer, how it will be presented. So left is the code part, right is the design part. So whatever is on the right, the same will be visible to the consumer of the APIs. So they on the right, this is how consumer sees. So this is, and also, so there are a lot of other tools available. So there is a even you can even generate the proxy stubs also. So this can be used to generate the proxy stub. When I say proxy stub means mock responses. You can even use it to generate some mock responses. And by the time actual backend is available and all, people can integrate with this and try to build their API, integration. And when actual backend is available, they can call the the actual backend. But and it will but make things a lot easier. So lot of integration issues can be sorted out in the first phase itself. Okay, as early level. Now here this is give me a second. So there is a publicly available editor, editor.swagger.io. This is what we use for design. Okay, we call it Swagger editor. So this is the one. So on the left side here, you see on the left side. So for example, Open API is the top level element. You have to write Open API. Okay, the version of the Open API spec. Then we have info. So info is the another field, info peak. Inside info there are child elements. So for example, title and description, some other child fields are there. Okay, and then we have servers. In the server you can define all the different URLs of this API where it is available. Base URL, not the full URL but the base URL. Okay, and then after the base URL you define the resource URL. We call it path or resource URL. So for within the base, these are the paths, ID, program, and name of the fields which are there. Okay, so all kind of things you can define. Okay, so this is the publicly available Swagger editor. We use this to do the API design. Okay, let me bring you here.
Can you explain this again, Manish, please?
Yeah, no problem. Let me, where is it?
Only this part.
So yeah, this is the editor here. In this editor, on the left side, whenever I make any change, for example, this I update this. Let's say one. Add here. On the right, you see one is added. So whatever I do, any change on the left side, it will be reflected on the right. So right is the design part, left is the code part. Okay. So whatever you type here, so these are all predefined field names. There are open API. This is a predefined field name. Then info is a predefined field. Usually, no one remember all the field names. Okay, what we do is we pick any spec. Okay, we will pick any spec and then we start editing that. As simple as that. No one have to remember all the field, whatever field you have to provide here. Okay, whatever fields here which are there. Okay, but yeah, just we have to remember the format. So the parent will be on the left align, and whatever is right aligned is the child. So if it is a title is the child of info, it will be right aligned. Okay, like this. So that is how we make, and then we define the path, URL, everything, and in that we to define. You can say here description will be there, and after description you can define the parameter names, name of the parameter, responses, success response, error response, all kind of thing you can define here. Okay, so this again,
Okay.
as I said, it is a separate technology altogether. You can do certain things. Now, lot of things are they have made it paid. Previously, lot of things were available for free, but now this is some other. You have to copy paste it, and then here you can generate the server of this. So based on this code, you can generate server side code. You can generate client side code. All kind of things it is now making available. Okay, so this is yeah, so this is the public editor, Sagar editor Sagar.io. and then yeah, this is used for yeah, API specs utilized. Now there is a main website for this, which field to use, how to use it. So there is a Swagger what is it? 3.0. So 3.0 documentation. So you see, this is the main website. Swagger.io is the main website. So from here you can go and check the documentation. What are the field? What is the purpose of the field? How to use it? Will have all the example. Okay, all field names and example, everything. Okay, so you can go to swagger.io. That is the main website. Swagger.io is the main website. Okay, so here you can now go to version. Usually right now latest is 3.1. Okay, but yeah, people can use 3.0 and 2.0 also, but mostly 3.1 is the latest specification. Okay, for Swagger. So you can go to this main website. You can go to the documentation and you can follow this if you want to spend time. But as I told, this is like a separate technology altogether. But APG, not just APG, but every now right now every API gateway platform, everything, everyone support this format. Okay, for doing the API design, or even for, and then using it to publish on the portal. Okay, so people use it a lot. Okay. uh,
Okay.
and then you can find the documentation here, right? Open API specification. So here for each this thing, Open API spec OAS 2.0, 3.0, and 3.1. So here you can go and just understand those, the name of the fields and everything, what fields are there, how to utilize that, which is the parent, which is mandatory, which is not mandatory, those kind of thing, right? With examples. Okay, so it is there, but we don't go through all these too much. Usually we pick any Open API spec and we start editing. So you can go, you can start editing, and then you can, yeah, update and make it as per your requirement. Okay, so yeah, that is on the editor part. um, so, so that is here, this one. So yeah, so yeah, that is there. And then little bit of the history of this. So as part of brief history, what we have is here, uh, in 2010. Okay, or early in 2010 and all, people had this thing. People had WSDL. The WSDL is for soap. Okay, there are nothing for it. WSDL was used for soap, and then there was something called WADL. WADL was a format which were used to define the REST one. Okay, but WADL was not. WADL was very complicated. It is again XML based. Okay, so it is XML based. So WADL was not the ideal. So now people started thinking what to do. Okay, so in 2010, Swagger project was founded. Okay, to make it a more simpler API specification design. Okay, after that, in 2014, Swagger 2.0 was released. Okay, so Swagger 2.0 was released around yeah, 2014, and then in uh, 2015, Swagger was the same. Swagger was renamed to Open API. So that is why sometimes people use the word Swagger, sometimes they use the word Open API, but both of them are the same thing. Now most of the time that I have seen is for Open API 2.0, right? So Open API 2.0, they use the word Swagger, which is for Open API 2.0. For Open API 3.0, they use the word Open API. So that also I have seen people using like this. Okay, so but yeah, Swagger and Open API, they basically mean the same tool. Okay, same tool and same platform. Okay, just that people now prefer to use Open API 3 for Open API Open API, and then Swagger is for the Open API 2.0. Okay, so yeah, this was a little bit history and all those stuff.